Welcome to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast, presented by FantasyGolfBag.com, your number one source for the most in-depth PGA Tour analysis in the daily fantasy and sports betting world. Each week, our experts will discuss everything you need to know, from the course preview and key stats to top plays, fades, and strategies. Whether golf betting, grinding out cash games, or playing for a big GPP win, our team has you covered. Let's get after it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. I am your host, Redkacheek, joined by JkrayASU, here to talk a little Pebble Beach Pro-Am. We got an interesting slate, actually, a really probably medium stacked field. The pricing's pretty tight, but we have a good bit of weather, three-course rotation, a lot of variables this week that I think is the last time we'll see it for at least a while, maybe until the end of the summer, different courses. So right into it. We got a lot to cover. So Jacob, how's it going, man? How's your week looking going into the Pebble Beach Pro-Am?
It's going good, Drew. I'm actually pretty interested in this. I think a lot of people sort of have the opposite mindset, especially with some pretty bad weather, some pretty cool weather, and some rumors going on about weather that they've had, questions about how they're preparing for the U.S. Open here, and if that's going to affect it. And then also 6.5-hour rounds. Apparently that's not appealing to everyone. So all those things, I believe, make it actually a really interesting tournament for us. I think that you will be able to find an edge because of that. And if we, play tournaments, I don't think cash really is a great option here. Certainly you can do it. But I think if we play the right tournaments and we're smart with how we go with our process this week, I think there's certainly an edge to be gained.
There's just a lot of variables, and I think lineup construction will be very key, just like every week. But with the three-course rotation, I think there is some light that we could shed on that. And then with the weather, I think the draw starting Thursday, so the Thursday, Friday, Saturday course rotation will be pretty big. And it'll be interesting to see how the weather shakes out. I think we can get into that here in just a minute after we talk about the golf course. But yeah, it's definitely a fun event. I think when weather is nice, this is like probably one of the most fun events to watch from a scenic standpoint. You get a lot of good names that come here. There was a whole host of withdrawals today, so definitely be sure to check whatever you're using to build lineups and check in the field that you have the most updated field, because there was probably a dozen guys that withdrew today. But yeah, I mean, you got Pebble Beach. Everyone talks about Torrey Pines a few weeks ago, how great that is, but yeah, man, Pebble Beach, and then a future host of the U.S. Open later this year. I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff we can glean from this as well, besides just DFS this week. But I'm looking forward to it. I know last week a lot of chalk missed the cut. We talked about Answer, and then Berger 3-putted on the last hole. And I heard a lot of people were on Finau, which I didn't really understand last week, and he also missed the cut. And then Damon and Glover were probably the last nails in the coffin for some people trying to get 6 of 6 through. So after that week going into this one, I'm pretty excited to kind of see where research kind of falls, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Glover bit me, and I don't know why, but Albertson also, for some reason I went that route. But I think that 6 of 6 was not very high, and ended up we had some baggers that cashed really strong with 5 of 6. So I think that.
Oh yeah. Shout out to Giant Beard. Took down the was it the $8 multi-entry tournament for $1,500. Chris Ferreter was leading the club, or not the club tour, the $150 driving range, I think it is, for $15K, and fell back to 8th on Sunday. But yeah, I mean, shout out to everybody who had really big weekends. It's really fun to watch, especially on a tournament where the weather got so bad Sunday. And if you held the Ricky ticket at 22-1, it was definitely a sweat. But DFS lineups were fluctuating a ton just on placement points. I mean, you have Brandon Grace coming from 7 shots back to take the lead. Ricky spitting a bit, Kuchar, like, smother hooked one into the water when he was trying to get home in 2 on 15. It's just like, it was a very up and down day depending on which side you're on. So, shout out to everyone that had really good weeks last week. It was definitely fun to watch.
Yeah, also lastly, shout out to Orange Man who took down the donut picks with
Yes.
Sungjae M. And then also last week, Hoosiers took that one down as well. So we'll get another round of those donut picks, but way to go, Orange Man, with the M pick as well.
Very good, very good. Well, all right, man. If you don't have anything else, we can. Well, actually, we have one more thing. We need to just discuss this real quick because I'm sure everyone's curious, and maybe this will come up on our live stream Wednesday night. But the ruling and the drop from Ricky yesterday was definitely tough to watch, and I don't know your perspective on it, but I mean, from a rules standpoint, obviously it rolled in the water. It's a penalty because it rolled in the water. But that rule actually was changed recently. That used to be a penalty on Ricky for the ball moving, even though he hadn't addressed it. So, like, that could have been way worse. He could have, in hindsight now, he could have ended up tied for the lead on 18 or won by a shot or lost by a shot. But, by him dropping it there, and obviously it's rolling into the water and he has to place it. And then when he walks away, it's up to Mother Nature if it's going to stay there or if it's raining, it's going to move it. And by rolling into the water, that used to be a penalty on the player. So there would have been a penalty in and then a dropout, so another penalty. I mean, it would have been a disaster, even more than it already was. But I heard a lot of people like, man, that rule needs to change. Well, it's actually better than what it was. And it goes both ways. We saw, I think it was Kuchar or Stewart Cink a couple years ago. They were on one hole like 40 feet away. It might have been in Kapalua. And, they marked their ball and they stepped away. And the wind blew it to like 3 feet. So they had a 40-foot eagle putt, and then all of a sudden they had 3 feet. So, like, I mean, I think it's tough in certain circumstances, but unfortunately it goes both ways for players. And we got to see it on TV. I'm sure this happens in, maybe 2 or 3 tournaments a year, especially on like the web.com. They'll play down in Colombia and Costa Rica. Yeah. It gets a lot windier, but it was definitely an odd sequence of events, to say the least. Yeah,
and then, Ricky with the stone nuts to just drop that, what was it, 15-footer for triple or whatever it was?
Yes, that was actually really impressive. I wouldn't say that won him the tournament because in the next tee shot he kind of hooked it left or at least pulled it left in the bunker. But, that was pretty good nerve. I mean, just for him to hit the shot there, though, because, like, I didn't really agree with him dropping it there. I mean, I feel like just go back to the front of the green and you have the same shot again. You have plenty of green to work with. You know that it's going to skid with the moisture. And he dropped back there. And granted, Ricky's probably one of the best short game guys on tour. Him and Kuchar really are just geniuses, and you throw in Day and all these guys. But I mean, he felt pretty confident. I would not have done that. Then for him to get it up and down for 7 is really, really impressive.
Yeah.
So just want to touch on that because I know that was a Twitter fiasco yesterday for sure.
Oh yeah.
All right. So looking at these golf courses, let's go ahead and dive in. Again, we got 3-course rotation. We will be looking at Pebble Beach, Monterey Peninsula, and Spyglass. I got data on Monterey Peninsula and Pebble Beach, and again, it's going to be at 3 courses, so it'll be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then everyone will play Pebble Beach on Sunday. The course rotation, and I didn't really dig into like advantages for starting on one course over the other, just because when the weather itself can be so drastic, even though these courses are literally like a couple miles apart. But we've seen scores really fluctuate, like on Pebble on Sunday, when the other scores, the rest of the week were fine. So it's drastic when it comes to the weather, which we'll get to actually here in just a minute. But the course rotation is going to go depending on which one they start on, but it'll be Pebble Beach, Spyglass Hill, and then Monterey Peninsula. So obviously, if you start on Spyglass Hill, you would then go to Monterey and then back to Pebble. And I think that's what Dustin did last year, and that got him in contention to win. So, maybe just right off the bat, you can look at that as an advantage, maybe. Maybe that's an easier route to go. Pebble Beach is definitely the more difficult. So look at the golf courses. They're extremely short. I talked to one guy that's been out there in caddies, and I was like, dude, does it really play as short as it says? Like 6,800 yards for Pebble. I've seen other scorecards say 7,000, but like for the PGA Tour's scorecard, it shows 6,800. So 6,800 for Pebble and like 6,950 for Monterey Peninsula. So extremely short golf courses. He says it's short until the wind blows. Like that's basically what it is. The greens aren't going to be terribly fast. I know there was some really nasty weather today with the rain and stuff. But yeah, like course difficulty for Pebble, it's a 6,800 yard par 72. I'm sure you could go anywhere, wherever you live, you can go find a public golf course or something, and like 6,800 is not even the tips. 6,800 is the blue tees and the black tees are 71 or 72. So, I mean, this is pretty short for tour standards. It was the 15th most difficult for course difficulty last year. Had one of the highest one-putt percentages, and that includes like par putts just because the greens are so small. I think you saw a stat earlier. It's like, I think 3,500 square feet are these greens. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So super small greens, and we don't have to nitpick, basically Pebble, since their guys are going to play it twice versus Monterey. But I mean, the greener regulation and driving accuracy, I think, are the things to key in on for this golf course. Last year, driving distance was the shortest on tour at Pebble. It really shows that this is a less than driver golf course. I did some math on DJ. So for reference, DJ only hit 7 drivers at Pebble. Only 7
Really?
drivers. Yep. So he hit it on 2 and 6 and 9. So only 3 on the front. And then on the back, he hit it on 10, 14, 15, and 18. So not a lot of drivers to be had. So definitely driving accuracy will be key. There's 2 things to kind of gather from a shorter driving distance is, 1, the course is shorter. Got it. The next one is the rough can be certainly penal, so they want to get it in play. This isn't like a bomb and gouge type of golf course. So for me, just looking at Pebble Beach as a whole, looking at guys that are going to play well here, driving accuracy is definitely important, and driving distance is basically non-existent for me this week. It's we've seen guys like Brian Gay play well. Ted Potter last year obviously won it. This is
Sneds.
Yeah, Sneds is sneaky long, but yeah, we can group him down in that category. So you'll see guys. I mean, it's a mix. This is definitely a second shot golf course. There's a lot of damage done around the greens, I think. Guys like Jason Day have done pretty well here in the past. So yeah, it's certainly targeting driving accuracy and greener regulation. That's going to be huge this week. And again, just like we talked about last week, proximity's out. It has no play this week, or any week. I mean, proximity is going to be a wasted stat. So, and then the only other thing I had to kind of talk about for Monterey Peninsula, the driving accuracy and greener regulation percentage was much higher than Pebble, mainly due to the green size, but the putting on these surfaces, so it's Poa-Ana, is super difficult. I mean, putting on Poa is tough anyways, but like Monterey's got some crazy greens. And so just keep that in mind. You're going to be wanting to look for ball strikers. This is going to turn into a putting contest like some weeks on tour. But man, just sticking to the traditional stats. I'm going to be looking at greener regulation, fairways gained. I'll be looking at strokes gained approach, and strokes gained around the green also made it in. I'll be looking at opportunities, and the last one I had, if I can pull it up, bogey avoidance. That was it. So, and that kind of floats into the category of guys like DJ. They just don't make a ton of bogeys. So you'll see the studs really shine in this type of field. So what are you looking at for these golf courses, or what are you trying to target for your players?
Really, you touched on a majority of them. I did have a question I was curious about. I'm too looking at bogey avoidance, but I was trying to decide about using scrambling also, and just because the greens are so small. And I was sort of on the fence about that. Are they measuring the same thing?
No, it's a little
or
different.
Scrambling is just getting up and down?
Correct. So I think scrambling is definitely an important stat from a tournament winner perspective. Like, if you scrambled well in a tournament, you probably played really well. But strokes gained around the green is going to measure kind of the proximity more or less, even though we don't want to be using proximity. Strokes gained around the green is basically like, hey, if I'm in the bunker here, what's my strokes gained from the bunker, to the hole in most tournaments, and I'm gaining half a shot on the field from bunkers or around the green, basically is that. If the guy's not making putts, it doesn't really negate that. There's another stat called strokes gained short game, which incorporates putting, which isn't ideal either. But yeah, I would try to explain. Yeah, the scrambling is somewhat more variable. I think at the end of the week, the guy that scrambles well is probably doing okay. But yeah, going into it, I think around the green is what you want to look for. Okay. And then kind of real quick, because you brought up another idea as far as the bogey avoidance. And then talking about like birdies, what's funny is in a course where greens are smaller, they're going to be hitting, I think at Pebble last year, the green regulation number was 61%. It was 11th worst on tour. So not a lot of greens will be hit. Obviously, they're going to have to get up and down. So you would think bogey avoidance would be somewhat important in this type of event. And granted, with the weather that's coming in, I think it'll certainly be important. But just looking back at like Jason Day back in, we'll say 2017 and 2018. In 2017, he gained like 7.5 birdies on the field. And then 2018, he did the same thing. It was like 5.5 birdies. So, man, it was really weird to see that. I think bogeys is going to be king this week as far as avoiding them. But I thought that was really interesting that, Jason Day kind of got it done in a different fashion. He was more or less bombing and gouging it, making birdies, having some bogeys, and getting it done. But I think bogeys is going to be more pertinent this week. Okay. What else you got? Anything else? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, to be honest. Like, these courses, these are the most fun events because it kind of sucks that there's 3 courses to deal with. But like just looking at Pebble, I mean, that's a ball striker's golf course, man. You get guys, they don't have to be long. There's no advantage to being long. Hitting a lot of greens is great. If you're a good scrambler, that's a bonus. I mean, these are the good type of golf courses you want to target. And I think it's pretty exciting, at least for me, because the U.S. Open is going to be held here later this year. And just to get a look at the golf course, get a feel for how these guys play some of these holes, that'll definitely carry weight later in the summer for the U.S. Open. So I'm kind of doing double research this weekend for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's just really straightforward, like you said. I mean, targeting ball striking, tee to green. I know, it sounds like it's so short. This is going to be club down city for just about everybody. And, accuracy off the tee with, a smaller club in your hand those numbers are going to go up. So, greens in regulation also big. And then I'm going to probably dig in a little bit more with that short game stuff around the green, bogey avoidance, scrambling. I know we touched on it pretty in depth, but I've got some ideas in my head that I'm trying to work through, and I'm hoping to have a better idea come live stream.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely kind of recap all these thoughts on the live stream Wednesday night, and we should have a better idea of the weather as well. So let's go ahead and kind of touch on the weather real quick and just give people an idea of what they possibly could see coming into the event on Thursday and Friday. I guess Saturday too, since it's a 3-day cut.
Yeah, so first let's just say that they have already had some really, really bad weather. Like,
oh yeah.
They're referencing hurricane force winds to the point where some of the things that they set up have been torn down by the wind.
Yeah, like the Sky Vodka Sky Vodka or some type of Tito's vodka stand. Yeah. It was like a suite, like a huge tent. It got blown down and destroyed. So there won't be a Tito's tent.
Yeah, so, I mean, they have not had great weather up until this point. I saw something on Twitter earlier where Rafa Cabrera-Bello, I don't know if he was actually, that was on that course or not, but.
Yeah, it was Pebble. I think it was 18.
So he's
underwater.
putting in a downpour, putting it through some rain, some standing water on the greens. But, that weather is supposed to clear out in the next 24 to 36 hours. And it actually looks relatively calm on Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, there are periods where it's going to pick back up. The wind is not going to be, now granted, this is Monday, so it's subject to change and more likely will change. But Thursday right now, it's projected to not be that bad. Friday at PM is when we're seeing some winds get up there, 17, 22 mile an hour sustained with close to 30 mile an hour gusts. And then Saturday, looks like it's calmed back down a bit. And Sunday, you're looking at pretty much sustained 10 to 14 mile an hour winds for the entire day. Now, the kicker here is not only is there potential for wind and sustained winds, but the high temp that I'm looking at is like 52 over the entire course of the weekend. Mm-hmm. And there's a chance of rain on both Friday and Sunday. So we're talking, potentially wet, cold, windy. I mean, it to be a Pro-Am happy, weekend, this could turn out being pretty miserable for these guys. So,
you paid $40,000 and you get to play in this.
Exactly. And, honestly, I think it'd still be awesome, but certainly it might affect players, a different way. A guy that is used to, being a good wind player or being used to those types of conditions, maybe plays over on the Euro a lot and sees poor conditions like that.
English
like
players
or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
English players. That'll be big.
So, yeah.
If Rory was playing, he'd be a lock.
Exactly. But instead, we've got Snedeker, and he's the best wind player I know. So,
yeah, some people think.
It's Monday, so just keep that in mind. That it's subject to change and likely will, and we will update again on Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll update on Wednesday because I think we'll get a little bit better picture. We saw that last week with the weather on the weekend. It was supposed to be pretty crazy Saturday and basically died down.
Pretty calm, yeah, and then
Sunday was bad. Yeah, exactly. So we'll have a better idea Wednesday. I think the best thing that can happen for this golf course right now is get the wind up. Granted, today's Monday, so that we're recording this Tuesday. The wind doesn't look like it's going to be crazy high. It's going to be around 13 to 16 miles per hour, which is okay. Maybe that can help dry out the golf course a little bit. And then Wednesday and Thursday is dead calm. So it needs to dry out tomorrow. Otherwise, they'll be squeegeeing or doing whatever type of subterranean draining they have Wednesday and before Thursday's first round. So, and then like you said, there's supposed to be rain again Friday. So just like right now, I can't really get anything from that information. It's just going to be a matter of Wednesday night. What does the weather look like for Thursday and Friday, and try to see what the tee times look like. That's basically what I'm going to use it for. Right now, there's just not enough information besides what we can gather to make a hard and fast decision. So just keep that in mind and definitely stay tuned. Again, Wednesday night on Twitch, and that's at twitch.tv/Redkacheek. And we'll have the chat open, and we'll be talking through the weather and ownership and everything to get your GPPs in line. So it kind of puts a kink into things a little bit, as excited as I am for Pebble, but we'll deal with it. We'll deal with it fine.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. Let's dive into some players, and let's see where our head's at. I think it's a pretty decent field. I think there's spots that are really, really heavy. I feel like the pricing's pretty tight this week. And then there's some pretty big gaps, and then kind of at the bottom is a dead spot. Last week, I think you could have found some decent plays, and this week, not so much. I'm not really interested in Mr. Ho Sung Choi.
No?
No.
Yeah, I mean...
Okay, I was about to say we'll have to get to that. No thanks, man. He's won 2 times on the freaking Japanese Junior Tour. I'm not playing a guy that's done that. Yeah. So, Starting off at the top, man, there's nothing else you can say. DJ comes in at 11-4. I don't know how, at least for me, unless the ownership gets ridiculous and there's a pivot down to Jason Day or somebody, or Tommy Fleetwood, he's one that I kind of like in that range. But, dude, Dustin Johnson, he's coming off a win last week, and his results here are outside of, the one win he had back in 2009. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 top fives in the last 7 years. He loves this place. He gets to play the Pro-Am with Wayne Gretzky. Is I don't know what she is anymore, fiance, or I don't know if they got married. But Paulina's dad, Wayne Gretzky. So there's a narrative with DJ and the Gretzkys. The RBC Canadian Open. He digs that place and plays well there every time. Wayne Gretzky comes down and plays this Pro-Am, and DJ plays well every time. And he's a good player anyways. It's not just the narrative. Yeah. But the only hesitation I would have, and there's no data to back this up, so it's just going to be go with what you see. He has never played back-to-back weeks before this event over in the Middle East. He's played Abu Dhabi, I think, or Dubai. It might be the same golf course, but that's usually like the second to last week of January. He's played that like the last 3 years. He always goes to that event, which is fine. He's never played in this event they had last week that he won. And it doesn't really make me cautious, but like I don't know what the travel situation is. From what I've seen with Bryson, he had a rough time coming back. DJ, I don't know if his situation was better or worse, but if anything, DJ will be on limited rest. But again, he loves this golf course. There's really nothing bad you can say outside of I've never seen him play in Saudi Arabia the week before and win. I don't know what happens after that, but from his history, his stats, I can't really point out any red flags. He looks like he deserves a higher price tag than 11-4 in my mind.
Agreed. I think that this is very similar to the St. Jude's situation that we had last year, where field was kind of weaker. I mean, not that this field is weak necessarily. There's some good plays, but there's also some lesser plays, and pricing is tighter. And it reminds me a lot of the St. Jude's last year, where DJ was at the top, and it was almost like just go ahead and lock in Dustin Johnson and figure the rest out. And sure enough, I mean, he paid that off for everybody and just put on a clinic that week. I hesitate to say that the same thing's going to happen, but you said it yourself. His course history here, there's something about this course, this rotation. He just gets in the zone, and outside of a chase down from the likes of Ted Potter Jr. last year, I think that Dustin Johnson, despite being, was he 11-4, 11-6, 11-4, despite that price, I mean, he should be closer to 12.
Oh, yeah, if not over 12 in this field. Yeah, exactly.
And 11-4, I mean, that's easy to fit in and feel comfortable with. So
absolutely,
Dustin Johnson is, in my opinion, a no-brainer.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with him. Again, not to harp on it too much, but like ownership should be in play this week. And Dustin Johnson, if he's 30%, that sounds so high, but for a guy like that, that's really not that high. If it's like a Phil Mickelson, 30%, that's probably worth a fade. If it's a $7,200 guy at 30%, absolutely. But a DJ, man, in this field, maybe 30% you can start to fade, but I think up through 26, 27, 28%, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you.
In most events, I mean, if you're playing the $5 GPP, then you should probably either go 100% or 0% or 10% or something and be underweight or overweight. But going down the list, I'm not going to touch on your guy Jason Day. I'm sure you'll handle that. But the only one that I really am interested in is Tommy Fleetwood at 10-3. I will say this. Tony Finau is very interesting to me coming off of last week. Again, Dude, I don't know why so many people play Tony Finau at that golf course. Like, that's not his golf course. You know, coming to this course is a little bit closer to what he likes to play. So I would be more willing to play Tony Finau this week, especially after a miscut. His ownership should be lower, that close to Day and Johnson. And you got Fleetwood and Kuchar there. And then Kuchar's the other one, man. I am not going to play Kuchar this week. There's no shot. The guy I want to play is Tommy Fleetwood. And I'll give you a hot take on Tommy Fleetwood. I don't think, if he doesn't win this week, I think he can win the U.S. Open here. I think he's such a good ball striker. He ranks out so well over on the European Tour, green regulation, fairways gain, and all that stuff. Even on the PGA Tour, I see that he's ranked first in green regulation in this field. And that's with guys like, Dustin in here, Tony Finau, Kuchar, Cantley. He's ranked first. And that's what's going to take to win this golf tournament when June rolls around. So I really like Tommy Fleetwood. I like him now. I like him for the U.S. Open. So Tommy Fleetwood and DJ are my two guys as of right now that I'm going to target in the 10K range.
Well, I can't pass up my guy Jason Day, and I appreciate you allowing me to talk about him. But
absolutely,
me and you had a conversation. I think it was last week or perhaps the week before. I think it was the Farmers when he, I think, finished 5th or something, another top 10 at the Farmers.
Yep.
And you have to understand that with Jason Day, you're not playing him because he is a fairway seeker with his driver and sticks it to 5 feet every time on approach. That's just not, certainly he can do that. He has that capability.
Mm-hmm.
But you are playing him knowing that he is one of the best putters in the world and his short game is elite. And if that's the way that he gains strokes against the field, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, guys that knock him because he, his driver may not be on, or his approach numbers may not be the greatest. I don't care how he's gaining strokes against the field. He continues to do it tournament after tournament.
Absolutely.
How long do you try and discredit that while he continues to pump out top 5s and top 10s? So
yeah, absolutely. Like, his approach numbers with his wins and like some of his bad events are no different. It's
exactly
just around the green, and he is one of the best around the green on tour for sure. There's events he's won where he's lost strokes on approach, and I think on this type of golf course, someone lose strokes on just because the greens are so small. It's a shorter golf course. If you're hitting it to like 20 feet, you're probably losing strokes from 110 yards. But you could certainly win this golf tournament that way, and he's come very close in the past for sure.
Exactly, and he's got good course history here. I would almost be curious to see. I haven't looked at projections yet of ownership, but I can't decide if he would be a sort of sneaky pivot off. I think his course history would probably still have his ownership pretty high, and his most recent finish.
I think he'll be 12% or lower.
Okay, well
he's the pivot. I have a tough time.
Pivot, yeah.
I have a tough time saying to pivot off of DJ, but obviously you can't play both of them in the same lineup. I guess you could, and you would have a terrible lineup. But yeah, no thanks. So yeah, he's definitely a good pivot. I think there's other pivots in there for sure that'll work.
Mm-hmm.
But he looks very similar to the Dustin Johnson prototypical golfer for this type of golf course. So I'm on board with Jason Day. It'll be GPPs only for me. I think in single entries and stuff, I'll just go DJ and roll with it.
Yeah,
if you're doing 3 max or something, I would probably mix in a Jason Day lineup.
Agreed. I think if you're doing multi in this stage, you get a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But you're really not dropping off a lot from DJ down to Day.
Yeah.
Now, with the other guys in this range, I'm in agreement with both of you. With you on both of Finau and Kuchar. I am a big Fleetwood guy, and I'm a little worried that you're hyping him this much because then that means I feel like everybody's going to be hyping him. And
I got another guy I'm going to hype more, but Fleetwood, man, is
I love
not under the
Fleetwood.
radar. Yeah,
I love Fleetwood, and I think he's a great play here. Certainly, if you want to avoid the top two and try and go with a more balanced lineup, which I think is going to be a little bit more contrarian this week, just because of the type of field it is, the type of pricing, and DJ and Day up top.
Yeah,
I think if you do go Fleetwood and then drop down and you get somebody in the 9 and 8, then that's going to be different. So it's certainly worth considering. As far as Kuchar and Tony Finau, just not a ton of interest there. If I had to go with one of them, I'd probably go Kuchar just because he played better last week than Finau. But as far as this range, certainly, if I had to rank them, I would probably go DJ over Dave by just a hair, and then Fleetwood is under both of them. Still good, all good plays, certainly, but that's for that tier.
Two things real quick on like strategy and lineup construction. I think DJ will be a very popular build, obviously, and then the rest of these guys will just kind of break up the remaining ownership of, we'll say 80% of lineups start in the 10K and above range, and DJ gets 30% of that. Then we got 50% breaking out, so around what's that, 12.5% or something like that. So, or actually, 10%. So. Yeah, 10% even. I think starting in like the 9K range, and honestly the low 9K range, and stacking around like the $8,800 number is a very contrarian, but could work out this week. I probably will do that in a couple lineups, but again, I think my preferred build is with DJ, and then if you want to get kind of a little bit more contrarian without going crazy off the scales with like, Hosung, I think, building 92, 9,400 down to the upper sevens is going to be very, very rare this week.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, if you're going to go with one of those hot guys, like you said, it's going to force you into the sevens pretty quick. Whereas if you start in that range, you're automatically differentiating yourself. So,
yep. All right, let's move down to the 9K range, and who you kind of eyeballing in this range. It's an interesting range for sure.
It is. I really don't like seeing a lot of the lower 9Ks. I'm not really convinced by a lot of that down there. Reed, I would probably take the most over Scott, Casey, and Revy. It's Reevy. Yeah, it's Reevy. Excuse me,
Not
Reevy. But Reed has a really good short game, and I could see him performing well here. Spieth, I'm curious your takes on Spieth. I'll hit on just this range, and then I want to hear what you got to say about that. I don't mind Cantlay. Not really interested in Phil, but not a lot screams at me in this range, honestly. Maybe Spieth to go contrarian, if that's even going to be contrarian, but probably off the bat, I would say Reed in this range the most for me.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really thrilled with the 9K range, to be honest. Like, I feel like I should like Cantlay a bit more, but I'm just not into it. And I think this is a really good Cantlay spot. He's going to be very low owned at 9,800. I mean, that's, to me, on this course and his history and recent form, like really, really recent form, I don't think Cantlay should be 9,800, man. I think he should be closer to the Adam Scott range. And then I would probably be a little more interested. But the only name I'm really interested in the 9K range is Paul Casey. And then I'm tempted to play a little Patrick Reed, even though he looks awful on paper, but he's really been playing decent, like at the end of last year, the beginning of this year. He hasn't really popped for anybody, but I like Patrick Reed a little bit as a GBP flyer. But yeah, I think Paul Casey will be my go-to guy.
Okay.
You want to talk about Spieth?
Let me just hear what you got.
Yeah, I'm not gonna play Spieth. I haven't decided. I feel like this week is not the time for me to throw in 150 lineups into the $5 or something. If I were doing that, then yes, I could definitely see some Jordan Spieth action. But looking at what he did at the Farmers, I'm not ready to jump onto Spieth yet. I think he'll pop one of these weeks and it'll catch everyone off guard, but I'm not ready. This is a decent golf course for him, obviously. He's played really well here, but I'm not ready to pull the trigger on Spieth. I want to see a little bit better tee to green. Like, I don't care if he's starting to putt better. I need to see, I want to see a Kuchar-esque like improvement tee to green and then catch up with the putter, or an Adam Scott. Like, I want to see you striping it, hitting 16 out of 18 greens in regulation, and then get the putter going. Like, I can't go the other way. That's against everything in my being.
So despite a lot of the hesitation and frustration with Spieth over his putting woes, tee to green, he wasn't that great either. So, like you were saying, if his putting is coming back, it doesn't matter if he's not hitting greens. And, we saw a pretty classic Jordan Spieth first round at the Farmers where he was making some long putts and kind of bailing himself out on some not great approach shots, and then he just sort of faded. So I agree with you on that. I'm indifferent about it right now. I might look into it a little bit more, just probably as a contrarian play if that even ends up what he is. But again, like you said, just not really a ton of interest in this 9K range.
Yeah, it's really weird. I wish I kind of had more interest. That's why I was saying the contrarian build will probably be starting here. And if you were running a ton of lineups, I would land on a ton of these guys. Mickelson coming off some decent form. Ches Reavie obviously is playing good. I don't love it. If I'm building, somewhat optimal, I would start with DJ and skip this range personally. Yeah. So let's hop into the 8K. This is I got a little bit better feel in the 8K range. And again, it stinks if I feel like it sets you up to build a certain way, because I feel like everyone maybe feels that way. But I'll throw out the names that I'm kind of eyeballing. I'll let you fill in if you have anyone I missed.
Okay, go for it.
So yeah, I think I really wish I played more Sungjae last week. He is a guy I've been playing a ton, and then last week I finally was like, man, 4 weeks, it's a lot. And then today I heard that apparently he's played like 17 weeks in a row or 11 weeks in a row or some ridiculous number. So I guess Sungjae's in play still. 8,400, he's obviously not too expensive. If he's really as tough as they say, and playing golf's not tough, but I mean, it's really, he's been traveling literally around the world. This would be his 5th event in a row. It's kind of mind-boggling to me. Most of these guys don't do that anymore. You see, Jason Day plays one event and then takes off a month, and then plays an event and takes off a month. Not everyone's in that boat where they've made so much money or have endorsements, but Sungjae's, he's done okay. So I think Sungjae at 8,400 is a really strong play. Again, I'm getting more and more hesitant every week that he plays. Just like at a certain point, it's going to catch up to you, just mentally from the travel. So Sungjae is in play for me. I think Russell Knox, he's okay. He played good a couple weeks ago. He played well last week and then kind of had some bad shots in that weather. He's 8,100 and might seem a little bit expensive, but I do like Russell Knox. He finished 15th here last year and finished 10th last week.
Okay.
Let's see. So Kokrak, I'm going to go ahead and play again this week. He rates out really good on green and regulation, which I like a lot. His finishes here have been somewhat consistent, although not a ton of ceiling. His last 3 were 30th, 23rd, and 35th. But his recent form has actually been pretty solid. So I'm going to ride Jason Kokrak a little bit this week. And then my last, which is a little bit higher up, I think most people might jump to Brandon Grace after last week, and I think that's a mistake. I'm going to be going to Shane Lowry, 8,800, on the European Tour. So, he doesn't play a ton in the States besides some majors and WGCs. He ranks 8th on the European Tour strokes gained approach. He's 8th in tee to green overall. He ranks 13th in green and regulation and 27th in driving accuracy, which should be fine for this golf course. And the other kicker is he's a really bad putter, which what we have seen, and I can definitely allude to, these type of greens, POA, can definitely serve a bad putter right. Like there's just so much variability in the way the grass grows. I think a bad putter can do pretty well here. Good putters can do well here too. We've seen Snedeker putt really well in POA, and he just loves it. But I think Shane Lowry is a really, really strong play at 8,800. And he's coming off some really good finishes over on the European Tour. So he won like 3 weeks ago, and then he finished 13th in Abu Dhabi. So really good form coming in here.
Okay. So coincidentally, I'm not going to mention any of those guys. Instead, I have 3 others that I've got some interest in. So I think that gives the listeners a little bit more options.
You don't like any of those guys, or you just like the other guys more? Or?
I mean, I don't dislike those guys. I'm with you that the M play is worrisome. It just Murphy's Law is, you're going to jump back on M after you didn't play him, and now this is the week that he begins to show some sign of fatigue or doesn't play as well. Kokrak, I'm really uncertain on him. I know that he has played well. His form coming in is pretty strong, and again, that's just another situation where I feel like, okay, let's jump on the Kokrak train, just like everybody's going to play, and then he misses the cut. I'm not saying that's most likely scenario, but it just feels like it might be a trap spot on Kokrak. So I do have some interest in Shane Lowry. Actually, I don't mind that play at all. But the Euro guy that I'm interested in is Matthew Fitzpatrick at 8,600. His last event out was at the Dubai Desert Classic. He finished 16th, and before that, I think he had a 34th, a 27th at the DP World Tour, and then Nedbank. I mean, those are back in November, but he has not played this event, and he's known as an excellent putter. I'm not certain if that translates over to this POA. I think that it's I don't know what most of the greens are over on the Euro stuff, but whether they're bent or if POA's over there.
I don't think they're bent. It's some other weird grass.
So
it's fescue. They putt on fescue.
Okay. But he is known as a very, very good putter and pretty good with his irons. So that gives me a little interest coming in with some decent form. I'm also semi-interested in Rafa Cabrera-Bello, who has played this event before. He finished 28th last year. Also coming in not terrible for him. He missed his last cut, but it was only by a stroke or two. And prior to that, he did have a top 15 in Abu Dhabi. So he has been playing, and outside of that missed cut, been playing fairly decent. And then I've got some interest. I might go back to the well on Cam Champ. I wrote him up last week. He made the cut and then proceeded to have a pretty rough weekend.
He's playing bad, man. He's playing bad.
He is playing bad, but hear me out here. I feel like one of the fall swing events where we were hyping Cam Champ in the context of a club down scenario, right?
Yeah, Mayakoba.
Exactly. So
right?
he pulls out, his 2-iron or whatever it is, and he can hit that 280 instead of 340. And I just think, what did he finish at Mayakoba?
I'm pulling it up. Was it 28th or was it 6th? It was 10th. 10th. He finished 10th.
Yeah. So I think that
I get that, but he still has to hit his irons.
He has not been playing well. I don't have his approach numbers in front of me right now.
Yeah. I'm just saying it's not so much the driving. I get that. Like, the dude's long enough. He doesn't need to hit drivers here, but his irons have been bad. That's my main point of contention for him.
Yeah.
Couldn't he turn it around? Absolutely. And this could be a week. He could be like a get a DJ feed or something. And we don't know how he plays in this weather. He's from Texas, man. They get dry weather. They'll get rainstorms every now and then, but they don't play in that. Texas A&M, no way. So,
all right. So no Champ for you, it sounds like.
No, I'm not playing Champ this week. I mean,
okay.
And I'm not playing that many lineups. Again, like if you're building 150 lineups, then have a sprinkle of Champ or something if you have a little bit of an inkling to play him. But yeah, I would rather just go up.
Yeah.
So
fair enough. Fair enough.
And I'd rather go down to some guys, but I think it's interesting because I think just stepping back and looking at him, he has upside to win. But yeah, just looking at recent form for me, I can't pull the trigger on a guy that's not hitting it that well, because if he's got to scramble in these golf courses with the small greens, even a little bit, it'll just wear on you. So I'm not interested.
Yeah. So that play, I guess, from my perspective, is strictly based on his talent alone and understanding the risk with it. Certainly he's going to be able to club down. He's going to be a little more accurate off the tee. It's just a matter of, is he or his iron's going to come back? And, he has the potential, certainly.
Absolutely.
But knowing that full well going in before you click his name, I think is part of it too. So.
Okay. So 7K. What are you looking at down here? I only have a few names, so I'm curious to see where you're eyeing. And there's a couple interesting ones, but yeah, I'll let you lead off.
So the first guy in the 7K for me, and again, like you, there's a lot of names here, but finding value in those names, I think there are a lot of sort of potholes that we need to try and avoid.
Yeah.
But the first name that really pops to me, and I know we had this conversation at the very end of the live stream, which was a guy that popped out to me, was Scott Piercy. And sure enough, he played really, really well last week compared to his performances prior. He, I think, finished top 15, if I'm not mistaken, or better. Ended up with he shot even on Thursday and Friday, but then ended up shooting under par Friday and Saturday, and then finished off pretty strong. But Piercy has certainly piqued my interest a little bit. His approach game is not terrible. I'm trying to check. He finished 20th last year at this event, 55th the year before that. So technically he's improved, but I'm not really putting much into that 2 years ago. The 20th, I think, is what I've got much interest in. Actually, looking at last week, he finished 20th at the Phoenix. So again, not a terrible finish. And going in, really, he didn't have terrible form. He had a 19th at the Tournament of Champions. Again, that's out of not many, but had 33rd at the Sony. I really, I don't think that's a terrible play. I think there are worse plays in this range, certainly. So Scott Piercy definitely has some interest in me. Lucas Glover, the one part of me says that I won't go back to him, and that's just recency bias. But I don't think he's a bad play, and I think because of how bad he played last week, that he will be overlooked in this situation. Everybody's going to flock to Henley because he had a good week. They might go down to Charlie Hoffman because he had a good week as well. But I encourage you to look back at Glover. We can look at where he lost his strokes primarily, and a majority of it was putting. I mean, on the first day alone, he lost 4 strokes putting. So, if his tee to green game was not terrible, he just couldn't make anything, then that's something that we're targeting in this event. Well, then he's worth considering. So Glover, I don't mind. And then just a couple more names down here. I don't mind JJ Spawn. And then way down at the bottom, Scott Stallings is somebody that I've got some really big interest in. Actually, he is Where's he at? His last two finishes at this event, he finished 7th last year and 14th the year before. So those two T15s are better. Now, granted, his form coming in is not good. Disclaimer. He has not been playing well. He missed the cut by 4 strokes this past weekend at Scottsdale. Missed the cut the week before, made the cut the week before, missed the cut the week before that. So his form is not something that you'd want to target, but he has played well at this event in the past. I think that he is a value down there when, we're looking at other guys, names that would be more popular, certainly. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that might go overlooked.
Okay. I'll give you my take on a couple guys.
All right.
So first off, I definitely echo your thoughts on Scott Piercy. I think he's a really good play. I mean, just looking through what he does on a tee to green basis, I think is really impressive. And his showing last week was really good. At least for me, I thought that was a good start coming into this, because he's finished 55th, 20th the last 2 years here, like you mentioned. And like 55th doesn't sound great, but for Scott Piercy, who's somewhat inconsistent, he looks like he's in decent form coming here. He could be one of those somewhat, like, you feel bad for playing him. He's like the Lucas Glover from last week, but I won't put that hex on us. So I do like some Scott Piercy this week. The other one is jumping down quite a bit. So like Molinax, I'm interested in going back to. He played really well last week, obviously. And the other one, so Molinax finished 14th here 2 years ago. So I think he was a rookie on tour. His last 3 finishes this year, he's trending in the right direction, 34th, 25th, 15th. So I'm thinking he could try to keep it going one more time. He only had one really low round this last week, but overall he played pretty steady. I think he shot +1 in the weather Sunday. So I think Molinax is still playing decent enough to roster again this week. And the other one I have, like you mentioned, guys going to like Russell Henley and Charlie Hoffman. I'm not really interested in going to those guys. But one guy in the middle there is Nick Watney. So Nick Watney, he has got 2 top 10s here in the last 7 years, 8 years, and finished 14th, 47th the last 2 years. His last couple finishes, he's at least starting to gain strokes. Tee to green, he's hitting his irons a bit better. So Nick Watney, I'm interested in. And people forget how good he was, 5 years ago. But yeah, I like Nick Watney here. I think he should be somewhat low owned. There's enough guys in this range that he should lose a lot of attention, but I think Nick Watney's a pretty good play there.
Okay. Anybody else? Or are you good?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, I think we'll definitely have some more thoughts on the live stream. Yeah. There's some guys in here, like you mentioned, like JJ Spawn. I'm not really interested in him right now. Guys like Damon that burned a lot of people last week. Taylor Gooch. Taylor Gooch is another one, like Sung Jae, who's playing, I think it's his 4th or 5th event in a row. So he obviously missed the cut last week and burned some people. But some of these guys, I think you need to look into a bit more if they're rookies or they haven't played here, because it's just hard to tell what kind of form they're coming in.
Yeah, so something sparked me when you were talking, and one last guy. Sorry, I'll toss it in. We'll jump down to the 6s and finish it out. But Kevin Streelman actually has a really, really solid course history here. I mean, dating back, 2009 and further. Yeah,
but I think he's come in with better form than he has now. I think he's been on that kick like Reeve, where he's come into this event playing really well. If I remember correctly, like last year, he was your cash guy, and I'm not sure he's in that category right now. I think Reeve just took that over. He did play better last week, if that's what you're getting at, but I think he's okay from the course history standpoint. But yeah, he's still a bit risky. I just feel like he was playing a little bit better coming into this event.
Yeah, no, you nailed it on the head, man. He played he did make the cut last week. He missed it the event before, and then he made the cut at the Desert Classic and finished 34th. So, not all inspiring numbers, but certainly if you want to ride some course history and, if that's your thing, then Streelman might be worth considering. But that just pointed out to me when you were finishing up your guys, I saw him. So
okay, yeah, I mean he's been hitting a lot of fairways the last couple of events, so I mean that's certainly encouraging. I might add him to some 3 max entry GPPs. He should be super low owned, but again, we'll have some more information on that come Wednesday. But yeah, I don't mind that play at 7,300. He seems super expensive relative to these guys, even though 7,300 is not super expensive. But you got guys like Damon and Gooch there. I feel have been really popular. Fratelli and Hoffman right above him. It just seems like a weird spot to put him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I can't decide if that is for me. Honestly, his course history, I think that's a little cheap. I'm surprised he's in that area, but I certainly can see, why guys are above him, why guys are below him. So maybe it's just right.
Okay. Going down in the 6K range, man, there's really not a ton. The only guy that really stood out to me is Svensson, 6,900. Obviously, stat hog. He looks really good. But outside that, man, there's really I just don't want to jump down too far. The only 2 people that I have over 6,500 in the low sixes, I'm right now is a complete stay away. I'm not touching any of them. Is Davis Love the third, believe it or not, and Hunter Mahan. So those are the 2 guys along with Svensson between 6,500 and 6,900 that I am interested in playing this week.
Wow, Davis Love the third. Okay.
Yeah, man, he's actually been playing decent.
I know.
He's a long player, so it's not, you can't really say this is a good course for him because it's shorter. Because he's one of the longest guys that's ever been on tour. Now you got guys like Dustin. It looks like ridiculous, but he finished 10th here just 2 years ago. I think he's got good enough form. His last 2 finishes, 7th and a 9th. I like some Davis Love III.
Okay, fair enough. Just like you, I do not have really hardly any interest down here. My goal is to not be in the 6Ks if I can avoid it. But should I have to come down here, there are a couple names that sort of pop out of me. Certainly Brian Gay at 6,800 I think is worth considering. He's known to be very accurate off the tee and a very strong putter. 2 of those things that we're kind of, leaning towards this week. Certainly driving accuracy is something that we're looking at. And then, splits, POA, bent, all that is tough to break down. But when a guy is just a good putter like Brian Gay is, I think that's beneficial. And, especially if the weather is bad, where hitting fairways is going to be even more of a premium. I could certainly see him playing well in this event. And then there was just one other guy down here. Sabatini at 6,600. I know you said you weren't really jumping down any further past this, but I know that he was known as a cut maker for a big string of the time last year. And honestly, if we're getting down this low, we're looking for just that. We're looking for a cut maker. So
yeah,
I do have some just a little bit of interest in Sabatini. Again, not super excited about it. He's played this event, 10 years dating back, and his best finish is a 15th. So, not really a super great course history guy, and his form isn't that great also. But I think that he might be a name worth considering. His putter is a little cold at his last 2 events, so just keep that in mind. I might have a couple more names come live stream on Wednesday, but again, nothing really is jumping out down here.
Yeah, I only have one below 6,500 and maybe 2 if I get a little crazy with some GPPs. But I think Julien Etulien, I don't know how you pronounce his last name.
Etulien.
at Tulane. Julian at Tulane. I think he's a really good play. He's 6,100, really cheap, and he's been gaining. I mean, he's been just tearing down greens the last, not to take a stab at Sergio, but so the Desert Classic and the Farmers is the last two events he played. He gained 4.5 greens on the field at the Desert Classic and 7 greens on the field at the Farmers. So I really like this, especially on this golf course. He hasn't done much with it, but again, 6,100, you get a guy who makes the cut, and if you're hitting that many greens, man, you got upside for a top 20 or top 25. So I like Julian Atulian quite a bit. I'm just gonna call him that, Julian Atulian.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it.
Right.
Again, we'll have some more thoughts, I'm sure, by Wednesday, because there are some cheap guys. Like if you want to get some crazy lineup construction in the 10K or 9K and above, get two guys up there, 2 or 3, you could definitely fit in a 2 low 6s and make that happen. Kenny Perry was one that originally jumped off, and he doesn't look great, but he might be worth a stab. So he's had really good course history. He finished 5th 2 years ago, 11th last year, senior tour guy, still one of the longest guys. So there's definitely some options down here if you want to get a little cute.
Okay.
So that's it for me, man. You got anything else?
Nope, I'm good to go, man.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in to the Fantasy Golf Bag podcast. You can find us on fantasygolfbag.com. All of our content and our tools for your showdowns, your lineups for the main slate, everything you need, find that on fantasygolfbag.com. You can find us. We'll be on Twitch Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, and that'll be on replay on YouTube and twitch.tv after that. So twitch.tv/Redkacheek. Go ahead and follow us there. And we'll have our live stream Wednesday night talking about ownership, updated weather, and any final thoughts we have for the tournament to help you get your lineup set and ready for the event. So, of course, leave us a rating, leave us a review if you haven't already. But thanks so much, guys, and we will see you Wednesday night.